Okay, so I think we can start. So welcome to the 17th research seminars in the RISIS series. We now have a presenter, Barbara Lancho Barrantes from University of Leeds, where she leads the bibliometric service. And she will talk about innovative means of communicating research finding on sustainable development goals. You certainly know that sustainable development goals are on the spotlight, and there is a broad discussion on how to monitor research related to SDGs, for example, through bibliometric techniques. And there is ongoing works developing ontologies on SDGs done in RISIS by CWTS, University of Leiden, and by the University of Sheffield. So that's a topic which is on the spotlight for RISIS, and we welcome also external views on these topics. And we have a very distinguished discussant, Ismael Rafols, senior researcher at CWTS and one of the most important scholars on mapping science topics. So really on the spot of the problem, how we map policy relevant topics using bibliometric means. You know the rules of the game. There will be a presentation, 30 to 35 minutes. Then I will give the word to Ismael for comments, rejoinders, and integrations you might want to add. And then we will open up an open discussion. You are allowed to interrupt or to post questions during the presentation through the chat, and I will try to manage a bit the traffic. So thank you, and with this, Barbara, is to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Benedetto. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to share my screen with you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So, hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Lancho Barrantes. I'm a bibliometrician working at the University of Leeds. Thank you very much to RISIS project for giving me this opportunity to present innovative means of communicating to research funding on sustainable development goals in this research seminar. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals challenge the global community to build a world where no one is left behind. All United Nations member states adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015 to tackle the global challenges with action for all countries. These goals have a specific underlying target to transform our world. The annual SDG report provides an overview of the world's implementation effort, highlighting areas of progress and the need for more actions. These goals could not achieve without the sustained effort of academics worldwide. The following search string shows the research contribution to sustainable development goals from a bibliometric angle. The figure shows the number of publications around sustainable development goals using bibliometric method in Scopus database. I just type sustainable development goals in Scopus in the field title, abstract and keywords, and bibliometrics to find out how many publications were produced using bibliometrics to analyze sustainable development goals. You can see the trend has been increasing over the years, where we are obtaining the highest peak in 2021. The main research questions in this study are: how is the scientific production of sustainable development goals represented in the bibliographical databases? Are differences in the results obtained from these databases? As there are many indicators, bibliometric indicators in databases, could a factor analysis and principal component analysis describe the research contribution of synthesize the information around research contribution in SDGs. Is significant the production of sustainable development goals in open access? How many preprints have been produced around SDGs? This study is merely exploratory, considering the 3 primary citation databases. In future work, we'll examine how the publication of SDGs are changing, will change in response of these trends, new methods, research, and the improvement of databases. The 3 primary citation databases that I have used for these studies are Web of Science, Scopus and Dimensions, and the different analytical tools, Insights, Scival, and Dimension Analytics. I decided to use all of them to identify the direction of the publications. I also consulted the United Nations Statistics Division to extract the data availability. In future research, I will try to identify connection between publication data and the United Nations data or other databases about economic data or social data. So Insights uses data from Web of Science. The main typology of documents in Web of Science are article, books review, book chapters. Scival uses data from Scopus, and the coverage is larger than Web of Science, but the typology is similar than Web of Science. It's article, review, conference proceeding, books. Dimension data source is the most comprehensive data as it covers preprints, data sets, grants. The difference between Insights, Scival, and Dimension is Dimension indexes article rather than journals. I have also used SPSS for statistical analysis and Power BI for data visualization. So the main indicator in Insights are the basic are Web of Science documents, is the number of documents of publication in Web of Science, time cited, how many times the publication were cited. Citation impact, you already know, is a ratio between number of citations per publication. Percentage of documents in top 10%. Category normalized citation impact, the definition is this indicator is calculated by dividing the actual count of citing items by the expected citation rate for document with same time of document type, year of publication, and subject area. So there are collaboration indicators, percentage of international collaboration, national collaboration, institutional. In Scival, there are similar indicators. You can see the scholarly output is the number of publications produced by a specific entity, citation received, citation per publication, field weighted citation impact. This is very popular. It's similar than the before, the category normalized citation impact in Web of Science. This is the ratio of is a comparison of the number of citations that a particular item received with the number of expected citations with the same type of documents, the same area, with the same period of time. Outputs in top citation percentiles, publication in top journal percentiles, different collaboration percentage, international, national, institutional, something like that. So Dimension has, again, similar indicators, is publication, number of documents, the citation received, publication with citation, field ratio, citation ratio. It indicates the relative citation performance of a publication when compared to similarly age of article in its subject area. Relative citation ratio, recent citation, and all metric attention score and publication with attention. So these two last citations are related to the alternative indicators. So on the 23rd September 2021, the new global SDGs indicator data platform was launched. The platform includes 4 components: a new user-friendly interface to the Global Sustainable Development Goals indicator database, access to the SDG country profile, the entirely new SDG analytics, and advanced asset option. The figure above shows the number of, shows the countries with the data for at least 1 year since 2015. Goal and indicator, average across the country %. For example, if the column of goal 3, good health and well-being, the majority of rows are green, which means that the data are complete for this goal on average. On the other hand, goal 16 is the highest with the lack of data. This figure shows the data complete by country. This figure is just an example of the countries. So you in the database is wonderful. I really like. You can analyze per all the countries, the United Nations members. But this is just a screenshot of an example of countries random that I just for the purpose of this presentation. However, the SDGs Global Database gives access to data to more than 210 SDGs indicators for countries across the globe. In addition, the SDGs analytics now also includes reviewing availability of disaggregated data at the most elementary level. However, how is defined the SDGs in the citation databases? In insights, the citation topic are derived citation cluster with keywords in the topic of SDGs. Clarivate maps a publication to the most relevant micro citation topic based on bibliometric analysis and manual curation. Maintain relevancy of yearly reclustering of citation topics. Insight publish the mapping document to contribute to transparent and high precision method to receive community feedback. Elsevier generates 3 sets of SDGs mappings. In 2020, inspired by the early queries, use a new approach to mapping publication to the SDG. Taking customer feedback into account, they significantly increase the number of research terms used to define its SDGs. Those queries were then completed by the machine learning model, which helped increase the recall by approximately 10%. As a result, the mapping captured on average twice as many articles while keeping the precision above 80%. Regarding dimension, they classify the SDG using key phrases and terminology based on United Nations definition of SDGs, including target and indicator definition and narratives. The search string acknowledges languages ambiguities, for example, American English versus British English, and implement proximity searches. They involve subject matter expert and add additional term phrases for quality assurance. They also eliminate false positive by improving the overall search string, not by manual intervention in the result list. Using supervised machine learning to build a classification model and subsequently a service that enables the classification of text to one of the SDGs. I want to mention the Strings project. Although I have not used data from these projects, they have developed maps to pathways for science, technology, and innovation that the best address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Mapping SDGs to paper has given very different results by different methods. A Strings approach provides a visualization of research landscape based on research areas, revealing a range of diverse research options related to one or more SDGs. They have proposed a new methodology for mapping SDGs, given the plurality of understanding of relationship between research and SDGs. They emphasize that we need more comprehensive publication databases to reflect the research activities in social sciences, applied fields, diverse languages, and low and middle income countries. I'm going to explore now the SDGs using the three main citation databases. The table and figure represent the number of publications produced about sustainable development goals per different databases. Based on the data, SciVal is the tool that collects the most significant amount of publication, followed by dimensions and insights. You can observe how the publication distribution are different across the goals. The most notable case with goal 3, the number of publications in SciVal is much higher than in insights and dimension. However, dimension indexes most of its publication based on data directly from open sources like Crossref and PubMed. Could this be influencing this big difference in data? This figure has represent the impact received on different data sources. The publication included in Insight received the most significant amount of citation on average. Climate action is the goal of the 3 databases that receive the highest impact. On the other hand, quality education seems to have the lowest impact across all the databases. As quality education related to social sciences and humanities that traditionally receive lower citation indicators? In this figure, we can observe the publication in insights in different goals and per year. It looks like goal 3 congregates the majority of publication, and the year 2020 obtained the most considerable amount of publication. Has COVID maybe contributed to this difference? This graph demonstrates that despite of SDGs being launched in 2015, we can see capture publication in previous years. In this paper, I use principal component analysis and exploratory factor analysis. I extracted many indicators from insights associated with each goal, as you can see in the table. I decided to use percentages and totals, and all variables are related among them to find the connection. The purpose of this analysis is to demonstrate if an exploratory factor analysis could help to reduce the number of indicators associated with the goals and take just several dimensions which describe them accordingly. To calculate the factor analysis, I used SPSS. 3 main components group the indicator. I decided to call the first component productivity, as it groups, as you can tell, as you can see, groups indicator regarding to scientific production. The second component I would call impact and open access. And the third one could be related to international collaborations and visibility. Then I decided to analyze the relationship between these components and the goals. Therefore, I ran a regression analysis with the factors and the goals. Here we can observe the regression, and you can see, you can notice quality education together with peace and justice, strong institution are the goal which correlates negatively most highest with the factors of productivity, impact, and collaborations. This slide shows how the documents produced around SDGs match with the field of research in dimensions. The publications about SDGs are concentrated in the fields of medical and health sciences, engineering, and public health and health services. The goal gender equally is the goal that more minor publications have in the main field where most goals are concentrated. In this scatter plot are the percentages of international collaboration in the publication of all the databases. Number 4 and number 16, again, quality education, are the goal with the lowest global partnership in the 3 databases. On the other hand, 13, 14, and 15 have the highest score in international collaboration. In the middle are grouped the majority of the goals. Open access is key to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals rely on improved access to information and knowledge, creating a clear link between open access, access to lead, and the sustainable development. Dimensions are the database with the most extensive document in open access, followed by insights. Goal number 3 has the highest number of open access outputs. Quality education and affordable and clean energy are the ones in the opposite. In this figure, you can observe the percentage of open access by different goals. Apologies because the color of the figure don't match with the color of the open access, but it's a room for improvement for this figure. The closed and the all open access are quite equalizing all the goals you can see, unfortunately. Exception for the goal good health and well-being, the majority is in open access. This figure shows the number of preprints per different goals. You can observe a correlation between the number of preprints per goal and the attention received. However, it's not as correlated with the citations. In this figure is shown a comparison among citation per paper and citation per preprints. Despite there are a high number of preprints in the SDGs, the articles still are receiving the largest amount of citation and impact. In this figure is shown a comparison among citation per paper and citation per preprints. Despite there are, I think I explained this one, no. Despite there are a high number of preprints in the SDGs, the article still are receiving the largest amount of citation. In conclusion, the 3 databases used for this study have very different results among them. Through principal component analysis and factor analysis could synthesize indicators which define the SDGs. The 3 SDGs with the highest number of publications are affordable and clean energy, good health and well-being, and climate action. However, the ones with the highest impact, citation mean, are climate action, live below water, and clean water and sanitation. Preprints have played an important role in the transmission of research around SDGs. However, more articles were produced with greater impact. The majority of open access publications are in good health and well-being, gender equality, and no poverty. In my future work, I would like to explore other open databases, for example, Open Alex, analyze the gender in publication around SDGs, how is the percentage of women producing publication around SDGs. I would like to collaborate with the string projects, and I would like to identify the countries contributing the most to SDGs, and a comparison of data from the United Nations and citation databases. I would like to thank the companies behind Dimension, Insight, and Cybal for providing the data, the University of Leeds for supporting the development of this study, and of course, at last but not least, Benedetto and Ismael for the opportunity to present this research here today. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
So thank you, Barbara, for this very interesting presentation. I would like to give the word to Ismael. Could you stop sharing your screen, please?
Perfect. No, stop.
Ismael, I give you the word.
Okay, well, thanks for the presentation, Barbara, and hello to everybody. There are a number of people here who have also done some studies on SDGs or on related issues, so I hope that we have an open and good discussion after my comments. I would like to say with Barbara and to extend it to everybody that the Strings project, which is now going to move into an extension study within RISIS, or well, RISIS will continue the type of work that Strings has been doing, is very willing to share the data with everybody. So if anybody wants the Strings data, please do contact us. We are completely open about sharing the data. I would like to begin by asking Barbara, what is the purpose of the mapping? Because I think that depending on the purpose, the difficulties in mapping SDGs might be more or less important. If the purpose is to do a high-level aggregate analysis, then we might deal even with a high degree of uncertainty. But if the purpose is to provide queries that allow, let's say, the University of Leeds or given a specific university to have a mapping of the type of research that they do, which is related to SDGs, then we have a much more serious problem in terms of the robustness. And maybe before I go into the discussion, I'd like to share that the degree of disagreement between the different mappings is extremely high. So let me see if I manage to share. Let me see, might not. There we are. I'm going to try to share just 3 slides. And I'm going to put it full screen now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So this is a publication by Caroline Armitage group at the University of Bergen that was published in Quantitative Science Studies, the journal, in 2020, and where they compared their own mapping of SDGs with the Elsevier mapping. This was the previous Elsevier mapping, not the one that Barbara was showing today. But they were shocked by the fact that there was so little overlap between their mapping and the Elsevier mapping. The only area in which there was a substantive overlap was the area of health, where there was about 50% overlap. But in general, for most SDGs, there was something between 20 and 30% overlap. There was this study by the group led by, let me see if I managed to move this, by the group led by Maurice van der Vesten at the Free University of Amsterdam, which is done, it's work that they do for the Association of Dutch Universities, where they looked at 2 studies by Elsevier, one conducted in 2020 and another one conducted in 2021. And they look at the degree of overlap in the publications considered to be SDG in 2000. So this is the study in 2020 and the study in 2021, right? But the periods are longer, and they only find again between these 15 to 30% overlap. So even within Elsevier, changing the definition gave these very low results. And then this year, my colleague Philip Purnell, who is doing his PhD at the Center for Science and Technology Studies at the University of Leiden, now an institute, took made a comparison between several of the mappings. And again, the degree of overlap was only between 20 and 30% for SDG 13. So in this case, rather than doing all the SDGs, he compared different mappings for the same SDGs. Now, if we have something between, let's say 15 and 30% agreement, it means that the agreement between two mappings is only between one paper out of 7 and one paper out of 3, which are considered as related to SDGs by one mapping, but by the two mappings together, right? Such degree of disagreement seems to me that it's extremely high, and therefore questions whether this analysis of mapping SDGs is meaningful at all. Is this a meaningful exercise if there is such a degree of disagreement? That's a question that I would like to put to all the audience. Now, why are we having these problems? First, we have a problem. We know that when we are mapping publications, we have good ideas about how to map publications to disciplines. But when we move to societal missions, so the societal use of the publications, we do not have good classifications or good descriptors, except for a few areas such as health, as with the descriptors provided by Medley. But in my view, the most serious problem is not the problem of precision. It is a problem of ambiguity. And by this, I mean that if you look at how the SDG goals are described, they are described in terms of improving reduction in poverty, right? Now, there are different interpretations, legitimate interpretations on whether certain type of research will lead to poverty reduction or will lead to an increase of reduction, right? So somebody at the University of Chicago might claim that free market reduces poverty, and somebody at the University of, let's say, Sao Paulo would believe that actually it is central government control in the economy which reduces poverty. Are we going to claim that these two different views are equally relevant to poverty reduction? There is ambiguity about whether you believe that certain research is leading to poverty reduction or not. And you could say the same about energy technologies. We have a PhD here at CWTS who is using the definition of the Korean government for renewable energies. And this definition includes nuclear power. Whereas in most of Europe, nuclear power would not be accepted as a renewable energy. So we have a second, and I think this is the main problem that we have in terms of the mapping, which is a problem of interpretation. So I put on the table that because different mappings are using different keywords, they are implicitly proposing different interpretations of how research is leading to improvement in certain SDGs. Yeah. Implicitly, each different mapping exercise has different models of about how knowledge production leads to changes in the world. And this issue about interpretation leads me to the third major problem which I see in these mappings, that is what we have been calling in innovation studies the linear model. Right? Basically, SDGs are about activities in the world. Changes in activities in the world are related to innovation. Research contributes to innovation, but it's not a single determinant. So by assuming that you can map publications that lead to certain SDGs, you're assuming a linear model. And innovation in innovation studies, there is been consensus from very from people coming from very different perspectives that the single model doesn't hold. So in the face of these very serious problems, and these are not technical problems, these are core conceptual problems, what has been the proposal of the Strings project is to do a tentative mapping in the sense of coming up with a pre-selection of clusters that might be related to a certain SDG, and then proposing the users, the beneficiaries, to think whether, or to make a selection then according to their own specific understanding in particular contexts. And now, this is a process that it's not easy, but we think that in a way, by doing this pre-selection, we are serving to the needs of people who are looking for help in gathering information about SDGs, but we are not providing just the only type of lenses, but we provide a more of an observation position that can be changed according to the different understandings that there can be. And let me finish by saying that given that out of the 8 billion people in the world, we have maybe 6 billion people who live in territories which are not well covered by the mainstream databases, looking at SDGs with Web of Science or Scopus is at the moment extremely problematic outside of the most developed countries. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you, Ismael, for these very helpful comments. And what I want to emphasize of these comments is the importance of explaining the meaning of the data in terms of what they say. So, for example, if you search for SDGs in a journal, in paper abstract or keywords, or what you get out is the amount of publication where the authors believe there is a linkage to SDGs, be it in terms of results or in terms of the rhetoric they are using, the relevance of the question, etc. So I want to emphasize the importance of clearly explaining what mean the data. But I would like to give back to Barbara for a rejoinder, and then we should open the floor for what looks as a very relevant discussion for our whole community.
Thank you, and thank you, Ismael, for your feedback. Is very appreciated because you are an expert in SDGs. I agree with you. I'm thinking that maybe the experts that create the keywords in the databases and the machine learning, I'm thinking that maybe the coverage of the databases itself can influence in what the documents we receive about SDGs, even if the search string in all the data in the three main databases are pretty the same, or the keywords, maybe because the coverage itself or how author put the keywords in their papers themselves, because there is no a consistency in the keywords that author itself put in the around SDGs. Maybe for that the databases don't capture the same results. So I'm thinking about that because dimensions do index article rather than journals. Cyber has a larger coverage than Web of Science and is different. So I don't know if it's the coverage itself can influence in the data as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I comment on this?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the publication that Philippe Purnell made about SDG 13, which is about climate action, he distinguished because of the lack of coverage due to, lack of overlap due to different coverage and lack of overlap due to different classification. And he shows, and let me see if I can manage to share this again, that only part of the lack of overlap is due to different coverage, right? So it's not just the coverage. Let me share. There we are. Here, can you see it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So when he compares the Elsevier search with the dimension search, he shows that, you see, there is this 12% of disagreement, which is due to publications which are in dimensions, but not in Elsevier, and 2% which are publications which are in Elsevier, but not in dimensions, right? There is a 26% agreement, but there is 33% disagreement because of publications which are classified as SDG by Elsevier, but not classified as SDG by dimensions, and 26% which are classified as SDG by dimensions, but not by SDG, by Elsevier. So the lack of, the differences in coverage are important in some cases, but they are not the most important question. The most important question, the most important difference comes from publications which are considered as SDG by one search and not by the other search.
Yes, for that I mentioned maybe the format that author used to put the keywords in the different databases. Because here at the university, my role, I always advise the researcher, pay attention to your keywords. And sometimes they don't know what is a keyword. So maybe the way that they...
No,
sorry, I think Ismael is making a different point. When you map SDGs, except you search only for the word SDG, you might give different definitions in terms of the terms which belong to SDG, and this is what generates striking different results.
I have an example. A specific example is, for example, in infectious diseases, right? When these searches were made, Zika, which you know is a virus that causes microencephalitis, was a very prominent problem in the media. So Zika has been used in the search for SDG for infectious diseases. However, dengue, which is a closely associated virus, which affects actually many more people than Zika, has not been prominent in the media, and was not included in the searches in some of the search strings. Now, in a strings project, we have tried to avoid this problem by including or not research areas. And so what we have done is to divide the whole Web of Science in 4,000 clusters. And then if within a cluster that we have more than 10, 15% of SDG related papers, then we say actually all the cluster is SDG related, because it can be, we have captured Zika, but there is going to be similar viruses in that cluster. But this is an approach which doesn't always work that well, to be honest.
Thank you. I would like to open the floor for author questions or comments, since it seems to be an extremely relevant topic. So you can raise your questions directly, or you can put them on the chat and then I will relate them. I see Nuria Bautista. Could you maybe repeat your comments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Benedetto, and thank you very much, Barbara, for your interesting talk. I just wanted to say about the problem of the different understandings of the SDGs. We also did an exercise that is called SDG Community Platform, and basically we try also to see the different understanding of some texts to the different citizens, and we also discover that with the same text there are many different understandings from different volunteers. So I agree totally with what also you mentioned, Ismael, what also you mentioned, Barbara, that is very difficult to try to translate these goals, as these goals are mainly done by countries to countries. So it's really difficult to translate this language into the SDGs. It was just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see also Frédéric Bourdignon, who wanted to share some work you did in this area.
Yes, I have actually shared the paper, the data paper I've published. It is a method that I try to implement for my own institution, and which is based on the combination of terms that are mainly coming from the first version of the Elsevier queries, combined with the domains coming from the ASJC classification scheme, so a scheme for journals classification. And it did work quite well for the corpus I have in my own institution, and it's a method which seems to be close to the one Ismael just presented, with the exception that I didn't use clusters, but fields and subfields related to journals. So I don't know if other people can test it and give me their feedback, but I will be more than happy to discuss that.
Thank you. So this is clearly an area where many people are experimenting. And on the policy side, of course, you can only hope that this experiment will lead at some point, I would not say to a unique methods or to a gold standard, but at least to some reasonable guidelines to avoid that data too different. Marina, you had a question.
Yes, thank you very much. For me, it's interesting whether the SDGs actually have a real impact on the research arena and as such, and whether we have some tendencies maybe because of the SDGs in publications, like the increase of certain topics. And for me, it's also interesting how we decide that it's because of the SDGs. Let's say we write about certain infectious diseases, and for instance, we did it also in the past. So how do we kind of measure this impact that actually the SDGs are producing on the science?
Thank you, and I would like to also collect a question by Marek, and then give back to the presenter and the discuss.
Oh, yes. Hello, Barbara. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks so much. I'm just thinking a bit in methodological terms. It's what Ismael is saying is like a meta study. Someone has to do this and you do this. So you show how different sources map publications. And at the lower level, we have to be working. So what I did recently was a study of all Polish SDG climate action and SDG renewable energy research in the past, whatever, 10 years. And I wasn't able to do what you were doing, like big mapping, does it overlap or not? I have Scopus dataset, which says SDG 3, SDG, whatever, 13 or 7, anyway, 2 SDGs and all publications. And there's a methodological limitation. Okay, I'm talking about population, which is covered by Scopus. I'm not thinking about other databases because my work goes down and down and down. I have to show where climate research is focused in Poland, in which institutions, who are the leading scholars, then where they are publishing, which type of publications, Polish or international, what, prestige of publication, etc., etc., etc. So I was leaving all your questions, meta questions for later on. When you solve the issues, I may move to a different data set. But for the moment, let's say in my case, it's Scopus, it's SDG as defined by Scopus. And this is a much more working approach. So we have, I would say, like meta questions and meta research. Someone has to do this, it has to be done. And there is ongoing research, sometimes research that has to be done. I was asked to do this and I did it. And with this reservation, the population of climate research scientists as defined in Scopus by Scopus, which is definitely very risky. It's inadequate, but still, if we want to do something, we have to be, following something we have at the moment. And this is my comment.
Thank you. I really appreciate this pragmatic comment, which also says something about maybe we should be more overt about the limitations of what we can do. In the sense, if you have journal papers, they speak at climate on a scholarly perspective in some ways. Of course, it's not unrelated to addressing climate change, but it's not the same. So at some point, maybe we should be more transparent. That using papers, you get out definitions of diseases, of poverty, etc., which are in the scholarly world. And these don't exactly match what is in policy debate. I would like to give back to Barbara and Ismael, and then we make a next round of questions.
Thank you, Marek, and thank you, Nuria and Marina. I think I don't miss anyone else. Thank you for your comments. Yes, this analysis was just exploratory. I wanted to see was the publication in the main databases, but I'm thinking that in the comment that now I'm thinking who are the researchers that generally are researching around SDGs, or because of this matching of the keywords, they appear like they are producing around SDGs, but they are not conscious about they are producing about SDGs just because the database just find them and they are not. So I'm thinking about that, and also I'm thinking that because now the database has transparency with the keywords that they are using, I'm thinking if now people are just trying this in order that appear, don't know, in the rankings or the most productive researchers in SDG, they are using these keywords to appear in the next mappings. So I'm thinking about that as well.
Thank you, Ismael.
Yeah, well, thanks, Marek. I think the problem that we have is that we are assuming that for SDGs, we can do the same type of mapping that we have done for scientific fields. Now, so one thing is to study a scientific field in which the experts are going to disagree on the margins, right? About which should be included and not should be included. So we have issues about precision. Yeah, and this is why we discuss precision and recall. Yeah, but in the case of SDGs, what we have is ambiguity about interpretation. It's a different type of problem. And then, so it's, we run the risk that we take a very biased view of what is the field, or a very specific view of what is the field. So maybe your study about climate change works because there is consensus about the Polish researchers working in this field. But if we were in Micronesia, where, for example, the issue about sea level is so important, they would include other aspects of research which are not covered in your Polish studies, which for them are fundamental. Right? So climate change in Micronesia, where the rising of sea levels might make the islands disappear, would need to consider areas of knowledge that you're not including in Poland. And so we have to be imaginative in order to be pragmatic, deliver as you have done for the Polish context. But when we are doing this, you know, like the study we did is for UNDP, right? When we are doing these sort of global studies, to be very explicit that contexts are extremely important, and that the relevant knowledge might differ by context. I don't know if we can continue the discussion. And then briefly, if I can share again the screen, I'll try to be quick. Not this one, sorry. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So as I say, if we're doing a high level analysis at the very aggregate level, even with all these uncertainties that we have discussed, we can look at the trends. And for example, in our study regarding the question by Marina, we see that there is some increase of the number of publications. To know that the blue line is increase in low-income countries, the lowest income countries, and we see actually where we see the most increase is in the high-income countries in the red line, right? So we do see an increase, but it is not, Marina, what I don't think we'll be able to do is to attribute this increase to the effect of the policy, because there are so many factors influencing whether people publish or not. Yeah.
Thank you. I would
Thanks.
like to give the word to Philippe.
Let me put my mic first. I have one word of caution and that I think we should be careful about, and one word and one question about directions. My word of caution is that whatever analysis you do, whether in Poland or elsewhere, you take a real responsibility, because you do not speak about your definition. The core of your if you take health, the core of the differences lies in cancer research, which is included in most definitions of SDG, while SDG the SDG takes a very peculiar view of particular view of what type of cancer research is concerned. So then you make a complete misunderstanding. You build a complete misunderstanding of what is the SDG first, and secondly, what are the important organizations? Because you go back to mainstream organizations who do a lot of cancer research while they do nothing that has to do with the SDG definition. So when you apply a standard definition that you do not master, you can make mistakes that give a core role to the classical mainstream organizations that never address the issue. So you take, as a researcher producing data, a big political responsibility. And myself, I would never do, never accept doing this. Unless I would say, I do it, but my definition is like that. And this institution is so important because it does mainstream cancer research or mainstream climate analysis, which are very far from the core of the definition of what the SDG is about. So you would have to analyze the type of production they do compared to what is in the SDG, and not rely on the definition that about the SDG that is given by any database. And I think that is my word of caution. When you work at the national level, nobody cares. You know, this is either it serves no purpose, or it is used for legitimation, but it doesn't impact on where you know, who is key, who should speak, who should give directions, who should get the money. Okay. As soon as you go down to the organization, you take a very strong political responsibility. And we work in RISIS on organizations. This is the core of what we do in a RISIS core facility. So we are very cautious about that. This is why we have decided to focus more effort on a string-like approach, so that whenever you speak about it or whenever you produce data, you know what you produce. And you know what you speak about. And I think this is my word of caution. Beware, this is a hot topic. These are very strong political implications. And you might turn into doing having very adverse effects compared to what you aim at. So that's my word of caution. My open question is the following. We are trying, we have our colleagues in GATE and within the RISIS project to use policy documents. So using Overton, which is a very interesting database, which has limitations, within which we use policy documents which may have different country origins, because it's a world coverage, may have different thematic origins, or organizational origins, institutional origins, as maybe a way to shape complementary visions of different SDGs, so that we can have a sort of a variety of definitions that are never right or wrong, but that are politically, as we are discussing political issues, politically grounded on official ways to shape policies or to shape problems by our governments or our institutions. And I think it might be a way forward to be far more robust in terms of how do we in a way delineate for a given, in a given context, the SDGs and the way to measure things, to measure production or knowledge, investments done by countries, institutions, along these lines. And that view is less violent than the one that sometimes Ismael does, but it is exactly the idea is that there is not one best way, but the way we look at need to be related to the policies we discuss, or in the policy context we discuss, or to the institutions with whom you discuss, as Nuria said that many NGOs have a different view, but NGOs have also a variety of views. There's no alignment about the definition of things between NGOs, even at what level. So that type of having options and studying options in the definition of SDGs is really an important direction for the future for us. And it is all the more important that it plays a political role. Whatever you publish in this field has an impact on the way policymakers see problems.
Thank you.
So you really have to be cautious, and we all collectively have to be cautious. It's a very important. So I really thank you for the presentation, because it enables us to discuss collectively and raise these problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philippe. Are there other comments?
I am aware that Marek is working on SDGs also, or is related to UNESCO efforts. And I wonder whether Marek would like to share at the UNESCO, how SDGs discussed or taken or thought of.
Ismael, you're talking to me, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. No. I did a short story, internal story for the government about the energy sector, because energy sector and renewable energy sector in Poland is a big political issue. As Philippe Laredo said, it's huge political issue. Wind energy and solar energy is #1 politics. So I did a story. Okay, it was an example. Okay. But I'm not working on any SDG issues. What I wanted to say is that when I'm looking for all population writing about something, like example, higher education research, I'm looking at journals, top journals and core journals, and this is how to pinpoint the population of all those writing over 30 or 40 years or whatever about an issue. In this case, writing in higher education research area. It's not applicable to SDGs. It might be applicable to renewable energy or small topic or something, provided that there are journals specifically referring to these areas. It's not the case for SDGs, but Ismael, yeah, I did some studies for UNESCO for others to be used, but I never did and I would never publish anything about SDGs, never. Something internal sometimes, yes, but I would never publish it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, sorry, Ismael.
Yeah.
We must leave everybody talking. I think Frederic had a very good comments. I would like to repeat to everybody.
Yes, it's just to add even more caution to what Philippe has already said, in that when I do this kind of exercise of mapping publication to SDGs in my institutions, I am very cautious in my discourse, in the way I present the results. And I never say that a researcher publishing an article or a bunch of articles that match an SDG is actually committed to achieving the goals or the targets described by the SDG. I always say that it is a kind of lexical matching, and that just those articles are related to SDGs, but maybe the researcher himself doesn't even know that it is related to any SDG. It does not have this commitment at all. And I also have another, very often I had remarks from people in a research lab which is dedicated to environmental sciences, and with researchers who know very well SDGs. They always told me that I was making a big mistake when I do not take SDGs all together, because they are really intertwined. And when you are doing the matching of an article to one or even several SDGs, you are forgetting that maybe you are doing very well in one SDG, but you are very, very bad in the other. They gave me an example of, you are making research about batteries for producing clean energy, and maybe the techniques you are developing to produce clean energy are detrimental to any particular part of the environment. So you are detrimental to another SDG. And so they are really mad at me when I'm not considering the impact of the good part of their research, whether the other part is really bad. So that actually 2 words of caution, so 3 in total.
Okay, thank you. But I have to remind you, when we started producing indicators on universities, Andrea Bonacosi wrote a sentence that remains important for me. Say, we are very cautious. We think about methodology, definition, etc. Then we produce indicators, and our indicators will anyway go next of everything on the roads of policy. So in a way, we will never be able to avoid that the figures we produce are used without all caution we know. So I think we must be realistic on this. That's part of the game. Maybe I'll give back the word to Philippe for what could be a final vote, probably.
I just wanted to follow on what Frédéric said. What I use as a language when we discuss about what we are doing, I use the language we are building. We are trying to build a knowledge base on the issue. What is the knowledge base that is existing somewhere about the issue? It doesn't mean that the people are dedicated to that, but it builds a knowledge base that is mobilizable, that is there, on which future work can build upon. And that makes that creates a distance between the way researchers engage and the outputs they produce, which is what they put into circulation that others can take with them. So I think it's all, we have to be very cautious about the way we construct our language when we discuss on what the knowledge or the scientific production related to SDGs.
Thank you. I'll give back the word to Ismael and to Barbara for any final votes. Ismael.
So actually, I would, there is a background noise. Okay, good. I would like to put the question to the community about what should we do about the existing definitions in databases, which are already there, and which make it so easy. You know, you go to dimensions and then plunk, you get, or you go to Clarivate and you get this list of publications. And knowing that most people are going to use this in a micro-detailed manner. So in a detail that we know has a lot of noise. I see this as a serious problem in terms of suggesting that there is this direct and clear relationship.
I'd say that is similar to university rankings or these kind of things. You might say it's a serious problem, but then users want exactly this kind of product. So in a way, we must relate to them and be able to provide something not as easy maybe, but easy enough. So the reality that policy users, policy analysts, laymen, media, etc., will not be very willing to sit with us month and month about definitions and problem and language, etc., if there are something dirty but available. So we must take this challenge. If you want to have indicators in the public domain, you must accept the challenge of being in a game which does not always fit all professional rules as much as possible. The alternative is somebody else will do, and even worse than us. That's my answer after 20 years of being a professional in this area.
Well, I would like to complement that answer.
Sorry, Philip.
Because our last word it needs to be to Barbara. If you were telling me, how can you demonstrate that what you are doing, that people need to be cautious when they use, even policymakers or policy analysts, if you do not build examples? So if we decide that we take 2 or 3 SDGs And I recognize that there is limitation, as Frederic just said. And we show what it gives in the three of them. We are able, in the three large definition, what the options that we build give as a variety. It's a demonstrator. And in policy terms, demonstrators are really useful to drive policymakers to be cautious on these very simple users. And in a way, this is the reason why we have built RISIS. This is not simply to build adequate databases or interesting databases. It's also to provide different ways in which problems are set in their at different layers, so that policymakers understand the variety that lies behind different types of indicators built. And Benedetto is there, he speaks about universities, but if there was not the 10 years of work on university, we would have completely different visions about universities, what they are about, and we would still only depend on rankings. So in a way, the question is not we are right and they are wrong. The question is to demonstrate and show what differences it makes taking one or the other. The same happens to what Marek said about his work on Poland. I'm sure that taking three complementary definition, looking into the definition, would really help you to provide complementary views on the same problem. And I think this is where we should go.
Thank you. I would like to give to Barbara the time.
Yeah, I will, because I'm missing just the word here, collaboration. I'm not sure if because I completely agree with you, Philippe, and I really like your point. And it's true, we need to be careful how we interpret these results. I'm thinking because I feel that these databases don't show which experts are behind this conversation to define these keywords. I don't know if these databases should be collaborate more with a committee or that represent a particular area. Collaboration with academics, in order that they feel represented in these mappings, because it's something that I feel is an expert and a curation, but I don't know who are the experts behind that. So a bit of transparency and collaboration between academics and these companies maybe could solve a bit of the problem.
Thank you. And I think you made an important point about transparency. And another point important for policy-related topics is user engagement. I remind we all owe important lessons from Remy Barré, and Remy said science and technology indicators are made for societal debate. So if you don't ask the users what they need, what are their perceptions, you will never get something useful to them. With all of this, I feel that this was exactly what we wanted with the RISIS Seminar series, a place where we engage in scholarly debate and we open the box, which means I'm asking Alessia to show the slides, that we will have a next seminar, and Marek will present on changing demographics of global academic workforce, which is of course a core topic for RISIS and for our profession. So I really would like to invite you to attend to this seminar, and I will remind also, I will issue shortly a call for the presentation of next year's seminars. All welcome to propose a work in progress. Seminars are not made to present papers which are already published, but work in progress which might nurture debate. And we think Barbara did an excellent job in this sense for in this direction. With all this, I wish you a pleasant afternoon and see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.